Tonight I'm going to be messing with some interface stuff. I've already gone ahead and made all of my smaller elements into one big piece, and for that I'll be using my favorite software, the World Creator. I've had to readjust one of my background images here. So basically what I do is I want to recreate the size of this interface, which I know, since I've already done it earlier, was 1088 by 720. That's just the size of my screen width and height, minus some of the sidebar space here. So really what I can do with this program, one of the things I really like to use it for is for applying textures to my interface graphics, or texturizing, as you might know it. I'm not sure what it's called really. This program calls it bumping, and that's strange because I think the only thing that's really bumping is when you turn on this height option. It adds a 3D rendering. Not even 3D, it's like a pseudo 3D, fake 2D. But I'll get into that another time. For now I'm going to put together this interface, and the way I do that is pulling in all the individual pieces. So I've already made all of these parts. You might have seen me doing that in one of the previous videos, but I've got a whole bunch of grayscale pieces, and since I've got my grid snapping turned on, everything will just snap into place here. So it's actually very simple. I'm just going to grab each of the pieces that make up the interface. So that includes this central piece here. There are two of these little header tabs, and there are two of these. I had to recreate a new version of this. I was having some issues with one of the transparent colors around the edge, so I'm dragging that one from here, and all the rest I'll just be opening here. Now, hold on one second. Okay, so I'm going to pull in the rest of these pieces. That includes some corners. Make sure that these are correct. Now I can actually, I've had to check the sizes. The way that I had to do this was creating an extra pixel around the edge. So I think this one's just a little bit bigger than I want it to be. So what I have to do is right click on it to restore transparency, and there's a really thin spot that I can click on the edge there, which I missed. It's very hard to get that right. Come on, one pixel up. There we go. Now I can actually crop that to the right size, 176 by 64. So there's one more piece, and that is the bottom, which also has a pink background. I think that just got rid of it. So that should be 64 high, and I believe it kept some pink around it, which is not what I want. So I'm going to come back in here. This is 738 by 66. So I'm going to go back into my button program here, and we're going to make a new one, 738 by 66, update, and there's my new background, and I'll save that. Actually going to replace this, so I've got a new copy without the pink background. I'll only use the pink for importing it elsewhere in 001, since 001 uses the magenta color as its transparent color. I'm just going to use this dark gray, which it's very hard to see, but it's on the outside layer, and I can actually click it crop it down. It's now 736 by 64, so everything's the right size. I've got my frame up here. Put my tabs in place. And since there's two of these, I want this one. I want it over here as well. I want our info background there. And another info background over here. There's two corners. And one central part there. So there's our completed texturizer background. This is a bump mask, what this program would refer to as a bump mask. And the way this would work, let me create not a ping, but a bitmap interface full. We're going to call this station interface full bump. And then we'll come over here, grab the texture that I've been using. It's in my metal folder. It's just this plain, almost featureless metal. We'll come back over here, switch over to bumps, bitmaps, boom. Pull this guy in, and it's going to auto render when I click the square render button. One big ol' happy textured interface piece. Now, the reason I want to do it like this, I'm going to have to redo a few things over here because I've already put together this whole part, this whole piece. The problem is I assembled it out of textured components when I want it assembled out of one giant bump mask, one mask like this, one grayscale mask. And the reason being is when you assemble it from individual components, each of these is textured separately, so sometimes the texture doesn't line up on the edges. But if you do it all in one go, that texture is applied all across the whole image, and I get this nice even texturing, and I even get these nice clear little spaces, these cool gaps that may or may not look awesome or the way that I want them to. So I'm going to save this as the station interface full example, replace that old one, because this is made using a full mask, a full graphic mask for my interface. I also have a version that's made up of just the pieces or the components, which those are just the textured pieces, which if I import them, I can just reopen the textured versions, drag and drop them in here, and it should look just about the same, hopefully. So I want the cam header tab. Now, there's not much of a gap between the tabs and them. The tabs on the sides, they lose the gap for some reason. I haven't quite figured that out yet. If that's what I want, if I want to keep the gap or not. And there's also this little space up here for some reason that seems to be just from where it cropped the textured version down. I think it's supposed to be a little bit taller. But let me get my textured frame in here. Textured view frame fixes it. It actually covers up that line, and it's the same size, so I'm not really sure. 1088, the size of 1088 by 256, they're both the same size, so they're covering the same space. But we want to restore the transparency on that, clear that out, and I can actually get rid of this one because you'll be able to see it through the bottom. And I'll open up the info frame. Info, drag and drop it in here. There we go. Now I've got a textured version. You can't see the gaps as clearly. They're more pronounced in the grayscale version, which you can see if I move the texture out of the way. And I think that's because I've applied the texturing to the outline, the little thin 1 pixel outline. So I can actually just test both of those when I get around to importing them and see which one I like the most. Yeah, that's basically how I assemble these interfaces with the World Creator into big full interfaces. So rather than just having a whole bunch of little segments, you can build them together into one. I don't know if that's the most useful of tips, but it's basically what I do for my interfaces. Helps me make these, I wouldn't say intricate, but somewhat detailed looking interfaces. Until next time, I'll be doing some more streaming later, probably some more game development stuff. I just wanted to take a peek at the World Creator while I was working on interface stuff. But thank you guys for checking it out. Have a good one.